Have you ever truly stopped in the middle of your routine to question why you chose the phone that is currently in your hand, the clothes hanging inside your closet, the person you decided to date, the career path you committed years of your life to, and even the opinions you defend online with conviction as if they were born from pure independence, when in reality most of those decisions were subtly influenced long before you became aware of them? What if I told you that there is an invisible algorithm running silently in the background of your life at this exact moment? And here lies the uncomfortable truth that most people avoid confronting. This system has been studying you far longer than you imagine, collecting patterns, identifying triggers, measuring reactions, and refining predictions without ever asking for your conscious permission. Every scroll you make, every pause you take while watching a video, every click on a headline, every late-night search, when you assume nobody was observing your curiosity, your boredom, or your vulnerability, all of it was carefully tracked, analyzed, categorized, and fed into a system that continuously improves its understanding of you. But this is not just about social media platforms or streaming services. It is far bigger than that, because what we are discussing is the hidden structure that understands your fears, your cravings, your insecurities, your ambitions, and strategically uses those emotional levers to guide your next move while you remain convinced that you are acting freely. Think about the last time you opened an app telling yourself it would only be for a few seconds, and somehow 40 minutes disappeared without resistance, without awareness, without deliberate choice. And ask yourself honestly whether that was your discipline failing or a carefully engineered design succeeding exactly as intended. The average person checks their phone more than 100 times per day, not because they consciously plan to interrupt their focus repeatedly, not because they schedule distraction into their calendar, but because something has trained their brain to crave novelty, unpredictability, and that small but powerful surge of validation that feels almost impossible to resist. And what makes this even more fascinating is that throughout the entire process, you genuinely feel as though you are in control, as though every tap and swipe originates from pure intention rather than conditioned response. A few years ago, a former engineer from a major technology company publicly revealed that these platforms are not primarily competing for your money, but rather competing for your attention, because attention can be transformed into influence, and influence can ultimately be converted into behavior, and behavior can always be converted into profit. The moment you deeply understand that your attention is the most valuable currency in the digital economy, every design choice suddenly begins to make sense. Every notification becomes strategic, every recommendation becomes calculated, and every interface becomes intentional. Why does your feed feel perfectly aligned with your current mood, as though it somehow reads your mind before you even articulate your thoughts? Why does a product advertisement appear shortly after you casually mentioned it in conversation? Why does one video automatically transition into another, then into another, until you forget what you originally intended to accomplish? It is not coincidence, and it is certainly not random. It is prediction powered by data. Behind every recommended post, there is a probability model estimating the likelihood of your engagement. Behind every notification, there is a timing mechanism designed to reach you when your psychological resistance is at its lowest point. And behind every headline, there is psychological engineering refined through millions of behavioral experiments. And here is the critical insight most people overlook. The algorithm does not merely respond to your behavior. It gradually shapes your behavior over time through repetition and reinforcement. The more you engage with certain types of content, the more similar content you are exposed to. The more you are exposed to it, the more normalized it becomes. The more normalized it becomes, the more it influences your worldview. And eventually, your perception of reality feels self-evident. Even though it was carefully curated through invisible filters, Have you ever wondered how two individuals living in the same country, experiencing the same year, can hold completely opposite interpretations of reality with absolute certainty? That is the power of algorithmic personalization, which does not prioritize truth but prioritizes engagement, delivering whatever content is most likely to keep you watching, reacting, and returning. If outrage keeps you engaged, outrage will multiply in your feed. If fear increases your scrolling time, fear will become more frequent. If validation keeps you attached, validation will be strategically delivered. Over time, your emotional baseline subtly shifts, and you may find yourself slightly more reactive, slightly more impatient, slightly more dependent on constant stimulation than you were before. Now, here is the part rarely discussed openly. This same pattern existed long before smartphones. Because long before digital algorithms, there was another algorithm quietly forming inside your own mind. This internal algorithm was built from childhood experiences, cultural norms, social expectations, repeated emotional events, moments of rejection, moments of praise, parental reinforcement, peer influence, and societal messaging, all combining to create a predictive model of how the world works and how you should respond to it. Neuroscience demonstrates that the human brain functions fundamentally as a prediction machine, meaning it does not simply react to events in real time but anticipates them based on past data and fills in gaps with assumptions derived from previous experiences. When you enter a room, you are not only seeing what exists in front of you, but also interpreting it through layers of expectation shaped by your history. When someone does not respond to your message, you are not merely reacting to silence, but to the narrative your internal algorithm constructs about what that silence represents. If your internal model was trained on fear, it predicts threat. If it was trained on scarcity, it predicts loss. If it was trained on criticism, it predicts judgment. And once prediction occurs, your behavior follows accordingly. You hesitate before opportunities. You overthink relationships. You procrastinate meaningful work. You choose consumption over creation, not because you lack ability, but because your predictive system is attempting to protect you from perceived risk. Now, imagine combining this internal predictive model with the external digital algorithm where one anticipates your fears and the other amplifies them. One anticipates your desires and the other magnifies them. One anticipates your insecurities and the other monetizes them. Consider dopamine, which is often mislabeled as the pleasure chemical, but functions more accurately as the anticipation chemical, spiking not when the reward is received, but when it is expected. Unpredictable rewards create the strongest anticipation loops, which is why slot machines have been so effective for decades, and why modern platforms have perfected the same mechanism digitally. You never know which scroll will produce something exciting, which notification will bring validation, which piece of content will trigger laughter or outrage, and that uncertainty keeps your brain engaged. Each time you choose immediate stimulation over long-term effort, your internal model updates, learning that quick rewards are preferred, discomfort should be avoided, and boredom must be eliminated immediately. Gradually, your tolerance for sustained focus decreases, making books feel longer, conversations feel slower, and deep work feel more exhausting, not because those activities change, but because your neural patterns adapted. So if an external system can predict your next click with remarkable precision, it becomes necessary to question how independent your decisions truly are. Yet here lies the empowering truth. Algorithms are patterns, not destiny, and patterns can be interrupted when recognized. The first step is awareness, pausing when the urge arises, questioning whether an action is intentional or reflexive, asking who benefits from your emotional reaction, and identifying whether comparison or insecurity was organic or engineered. High performers understand that willpower alone is unreliable, but systems are transformative, so they curate their inputs, design their environments, remove unnecessary triggers, and create friction for distractions while creating ease for productive habits. As they repeat intentional behaviors, their internal predictive model updates, gradually associating boredom with growth, discomfort with progress, and effort with identity. This process, known as neuroplasticity, demonstrates that the brain rewires itself based on repeated behavior, meaning each deliberate choice literally reshapes the underlying code of your decisions. Every time you delay gratification, you strengthen discipline. Every time you create instead of consume, you shift from being influenced to becoming influential. Those who shape culture are rarely the ones endlessly scrolling. They are the ones building while others react. So the defining question becomes whether you are satisfied being optimized by systems or whether you intend to optimize yourself deliberately. The secret algorithm influencing your life only maintains power while it remains unseen, and the moment you recognize it, you gain leverage. When you track your habits, you gain clarity. When you design your environment, you gain control. When you choose intention over impulse, you gain agency. Imagine waking up and consciously choosing your day instead of reacting to it, opening your phone with purpose rather than reflex, building something meaningful, while others are lost in infinite scroll. Small daily decisions compound into life trajectories, and invisible patterns repeated consistently create visible outcomes over time. Start with one interruption of an automatic habit, remove one trigger, set one boundary, schedule one focused hour, because every small change updates the model inside you. Eventually, your internal algorithm will begin predicting strength instead of weakness, focus instead of distraction, intention instead of impulse. And at that moment, you transition from being a data point to becoming a creator. If this realization resonated with you, do not allow it to fade into another forgotten piece of content, but take one deliberate action today that proves you are choosing rather than reacting. In a world designed to predict you with increasing precision, the rarest and most powerful move you can make is to surprise the system and reclaim control over your own decisions.